Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhaj Vitarana Stu Tarasara Sishamad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Sri Gauranitai Ki Sri Radha Govardhana Dari Ki Sri Krishna Balaram Sri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Govardhan Dharma Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. This is the Madhya Lila, chapter 1. And we have got text 53 and 54. Is that correct? 52 and 53. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Nirantara rati dina viraha unmade. Hashe khande nache gaya parama vishade. Ye kale karena jagannatha dasha shana. Mane bhave kurukshetre panachi milana. Nirantara ratri dina viraha unmade. Ashe kande nachi gaya parama vishade. Ye kale karena jagannatha darashana. Mane bhave kurukshetre panachi milana. Vaishnavis? nirantara, without cessation, ratri dina, night and day, viraha, of separation, unmade, in madness, hashe, laughs, kande, cries, nache, dances, gaya, chants, parama, great, vishadhe, in moroseness. Translation: in the attitude of separation, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared mad both day and night. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced, and sometimes he chanted in great sorrow. Text 53, Ye kale, at those times, Karena, does, Jagannath, Lord Jagannath, Darashana, visiting, Mane, within the mind, Bhave, thinks, Kurukshetre, on the field of Kurukshetra, Panati, I have gotten, Milana, meeting. Translation: at those times, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would visit Lord Jagannath. Then his feelings exactly corresponded to those of the gopis when they saw Krishna at Kurukshetra after long separation. Krishna had come to Kurukshetra with his brother and sister to visit. Purport by Srila Prabhupada: when Krishna was performing yajna, sacrifice at Kurukshetra, he invited all the inhabitants of Vrindavan to come see him. Lord Chaitanya's heart was always filled with separation from Krishna. But as soon as he had the opportunity to visit the Jagannath temple, he became fully absorbed in the thoughts of the gopis who came to see Krishna at Kurukshetra. Translations, please repeat. In the attitude of separation, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared mad both day and night. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried. Sometimes he danced, and sometimes he chanted in great sorrow. At those times, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would visit Lord Jagannath. Then his feelings exactly corresponded to those of the gopis. When they saw Krishna at Kurukshetra after long separation, Krishna had come to Kurukshetra with his brother and sister to visit. Mama jnanatimanandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshu unmulitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha mukam karoti dvachalam pangum nanghaite gurinyat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum dinatarana. The character of the living force in immortality is Srila Prabhupada's translation of the meaning of this Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Charita means character, Chaitanya living force, and Amrita immortality. Character of the living force and immortality. And when Keshava Bharati Maharaj was awarding Lord Gaurasunda, initiating him into the renounced order of life, he was finding difficulty deciding on a name to give the Lord. He thought, I can't call him Bharati because then people will think that he's my disciple, but he's not actually a human being. He's a divine personality. Bharati was the line of sannyasis that Keshava Bharati was representing. So instead, after much consideration, he decided to give him the name, change his name to Sri Krishna Caitanya. And his reasoning was that Mahaprabhu had already for a number of years been propounding, propagating a consciousness of Krishna through his Sankirtan pastimes all over Navadvip. Chaitanya means consciousness. So the Lord had already been propagating this consciousness of Krishna. So Keshava Bharati gave him that name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, one who propagates an understanding, consciousness of Lord Sri Krishna. And of course he approved, and the Lord's devotees gave him the honorific title of Mahaprabhu, Great Master. So we are beginning, just starting out, already 50 or more verses into this Madhya Lila of Caitanya Caritamrita. And this is actually the longest of the three sections, 25 chapters. Adi Lila is 17 chapters, and the Antya Lila, or final pastimes, is 20 chapters. And many wonderful pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this Madhya Lila. Many of the Lord's 6 years of travelling, soon after moving to Jagannath Puri, the Lord decided to go on a pilgrimage to South India, ostensibly with the purpose of seeking out his older brother, Vishvarup. Shankar Aranya Swami was his sannyas name. But the Lord, being omniscient, knew that his older brother had already passed away from this world in Purandapur, on the western side of India. But still he used that as an excuse. I need to go and meet up with my older brother. So he toured, not only South India, but all over India for 6 years. And then he came back and for the last 18 years stayed in Jagannath Puri. So, and that's interesting to note that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his family name was Vishvambara Mishra, Brahmin name, Mishra, son of Jagannath Mishra. And his older brother family name was Vishvarup. And these are both very much Aishvarya names of the Supreme Lord, designating Krishna's majestic aspect, the Supreme Lord of the three worlds, Vishnu, Lord Narayan. And it's interesting that Keshava Bharati Maharaj, giving indication of Mahaprabhu's future, already by that time, vigorous preaching of Krishna Bhakti, devotional service, to the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And in his wonderful work, Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami has given his definition of the name Krishna. The first syllable, Krish, eternal existence, and Na, spiritual pleasure. It's according to Srila Jiva Goswami. And of course, so many famous verses such as Ramante Yogino Anante Satchit Ananda Chidatmani Iti Rama Padena Sho Param Brahma Vidiyate, that the mystics, bhakti yogis, derive unlimited transcendental happiness from the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. So, philosophers sometimes like to argue that how is it possible for the finite living entity to comprehend the infinite Supreme Lord? And the Vaishnavas counter or propound that it is possible by the grace of the infinite. But it's not possible for the finite jiva to ever understand everything about the infinite Supreme Lord, because even Krishna cannot fully understand himself. And that is the internal reason, or one of the internal reasons, for Krishna appearing again as Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu, to plumb the depths of his consort Srimati Radharani's feelings for him, especially when they're separated, as is being discussed in these verses today. So even Krishna cannot fully understand himself. So he appears in this wonderful form in disguise as his own devotee to try and comprehend how is it that my consort Sri Radha has these intense feelings for me when we're not together. There is meeting and separation. And sometimes it's described by our acharyas that the feelings of anticipation of the meeting are even more intense and stronger than the actual meeting themselves. And we see that even in this material world. Sometimes we may be separated from our family members for long periods of time. And we think of them and we wish them well. And then we hear news that they're coming for a visit, or we're planning to visit them. So there's great loving feelings of anticipation and spending time together, which is very nice. So what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his confidential associates? So, so this is the internal meaning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. And the word is often used, achintya, inconceivable. Mahaprabhu's philosophy is achintya, bheda, abheda, tattva, inconceivable, simultaneous, oneness, and different. That the living entity, the jiva, is one with the Supreme in quality but not in quantity. Krishna is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, but the jivas were very insignificant and tiny. A small quantity of Pacific Ocean seawater certainly contains all the ingredients, all the minerals and so on, but it cannot be compared with the vastness of the Pacific Ocean. One in quality, but not one in quantity. And Krishna often is very mysterious in his dealings with his devotees, prompting intense further attachment to him. I think the quality of... let me see. Ashakti. Ashakti means attachment, or one meaning of the word Ashakti is attachment. It's very far along the road of bhakti, which begins with Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangasta Bhajana Kriya Tato Anata Nivritti Shat Tato Nista Ruchistata. And then you have Ashakti, Bhava and Prema. So advanced devotees, they become very attached to Krishna. Their attachment for this material world has slackened off considerably, if not fully, and their main attachment is to Krishna and all aspects of devotional service. So that's a very high platform of bhakti, devotional service. But of course we're patiently plodding along on the path, hoping to achieve that. That's in some point in future lifetime. Even it takes some lifetimes to experience And Krishna's sometimes appearing and sometimes disappearing from his devotees in order to almost drive them mad in feelings of separation, as being discussed here, is his way of encouraging us along the path. And there are many examples, such as Dhruva Maharaj and Narada Muni having, at least in one lifetime, just one single solitary darshan with the Supreme Lord, who appeared mercifully before them and would sometimes say, "I regret to inform you that you will not actually see me again in this lifetime." But that didn't discourage either Dhruva Maharaj or Narada Muni. They kept on with their devotional service, serving Krishna and remembering him always. And of course, we have many wonderful examples in the lives of our Goswamis. For example, and we'll read about it in just a few short chapters' time, Madhavendra Puri coming to the vicinity of Govardhana, and Madhavendra Puri, one aspect of his personal sadhana was never to bother begging for foodstuffs. He considered it a waste of his energy when he could just be meditating on Krishna's pastimes and chanting the Lord's holy name. So at one point in his earlier life, he had, as a sannyasi, bothered to go sometimes door to door to beg a little sustenance. But at least by the time he reached Vrindavan, he'd given up that. So, and if he didn't get anything to eat, he would just fast, and he was quite happy to do that. But when he arrived at Govardhana, a charming cowherd boy arrived with a large container of milk and inquired from Madhavendra Puri, "Who are you, Baba? What type of meditation are you doing? I'm a cowherd boy in this village, and in my village no one fasts. So I have brought you this milk. You enjoy it to your full satisfaction, and I'll come back later and get the container." He never came back. And that night, Madhavendra Puri was dozed a little, and he had a dream. And in that dream, that cowherd boy appeared before him and manifested his true identity as Gopal Krishna. And that drove Madhavendra Puri, who fainted and went into ecstasy. And similarly, the pastime of Rupa Goswami wanting to offer something nice to his older brother Sanatan Goswami in Vrindavan, he just meditated like that. He thought, my older brother, who in Indian spiritual culture is considered almost on the level of the father in the family, revered. So Rupa considered Sanatan his spiritual master and worshipable senior. He wanted to do something nice. So he was just thinking like that. All of a sudden, a extremely charming young cowherd girl appeared with some milk, some rice, and some sugar, and said, "My mother has sent me to give these to you. And there's a couple of variants on this pastime, which is not unusual. You please cook something, offer it to Krishna." So others say that the girl herself prepared a fire and cooked and then offered it to Rupa Goswami, who offered it to his older brother, first of all. And while tasting that ambrosial preparation, Srila Sanatan Goswami went into spiritual ecstasy, but he knew, he could understand intuitively that that girl who brought the ingredients was none other than Her Highness Srimati Radharani. So he mildly rebuked his younger brother that we are meant to be servants of Sri Radha, but you have actually taken some service from her. So very esoteric pastimes, but of course they are there. So in this way, Krishna doesn't necessarily always appear beside every Kadamba tree in his threefold bending form, playing the flute with a peacock feather in his hand, in his crown. We made an attempt last time we gave class to discuss a little of the prakat and aprakat pastimes of Krishna, or the manifest and unmanifest, visible and invisible. And if you've got the eyes to see them, which I don't, those pastimes are going on eternally. And they're not just going on in the sacred holy dhams, where Krishna performed those pastimes, and those pastimes are still going on, if you've got the eyes to see them. Premanjana charita bhakti velochanena, Lord Brahma describes. One's eyes must be tinged with the salve of love for Krishna. And then you can have some experience. It may not be visual. It may be Krishna may manifest in some other way. Those pastimes are going on. And they're going on beyond the boundaries of the sacred land of Bharatvarsha. And they are quite often referred to as Sankirtan stories. And there are many of them, unlimited numbers of Sankirtan stories, pastimes. As it's said, Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not fully disappear or unmanifest his pastimes when he entered the temple of his beloved Gadadhar Pandit, Tota Gopinath temple in Jagannath Puri, and he never came out. And it used to be that you could give the pujari 100 rupees. With inflation, it's probably more like 1,000 rupees nowadays, and the pujari would lift up Lord Gopinath's dhoti just a little bit, exposing a beautiful thin golden vein, which it said Mahaprabhu entered into the deity there. But his pastimes didn't finish, not at all. They're still going on, and we're in them, in this Sankirtan movement. And they're going on right here on New Govardhana. And many mysterious and wonderful pastimes are going on. And that was Prabhupada's vision, that not everyone is going to be able to uproot and go and live in Sri Braj Mandala or Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham or Jagannath Puri Dham. So create these holy dhams all over the world and install deities of Krishna and have the 9 angas of bhakti going on and being propagated very vigorously all over the world. And some of our revered seniors have decided, even though they had many disciples, such as Bhakti Tirtha Swami, formerly known as Ganesham Das Brahmachari, when he got a life-threatening illness, which eventually claimed his life, his disciples said, Guru Maharaj, we will take you to either Mayapur or Vrindavan, and you can leave your body there. And after much thought, he decided, no, I want to pass away on one of Prabhupada's tirthas, Gita Nagari farm in Pennsylvania. And he did. Because he wanted to show an example that these temples and farming communities are non-different. And he had such faith in Prabhupada that he left his body there gloriously, surrounded by many, many devotees doing kirtan. So, and it may not be possible. Similarly, our dear God brother some years ago now, Bena Gopal Prabhu, he also had the opportunity, but he also decided, no, I'll live here in close proximity to New Govardhana. And some of us who were here, it was unforgettable. It was the Sunday feast when Venugopal Prabhu departed. And it was in the middle of a raging, roaring kirtan. We were having Prabhupada's Guru Puja, and there was a roaring kirtan. Of course, his wife was there and some devotees were there knowing that he was leaving, doing kirtan also. But we were having a wonderful kirtan here. We didn't know. And at that time, he chose to leave. And something very mystical happened, which I'd never seen before or since. The sky turned this amazing golden colour, and it could be seen all the way to Brisbane. I've never seen anything like that before. It was very mystical. Golden effulgence. So, wonderful experience. The prakat and aprakat, visible and invisible pastimes, manifest and unmanifest. Krishna's pastimes. It's interesting. I heard that on one occasion Srila Prabhupada said, a new religion especially cannot flourish without royal patronage. And as some of you may have read, India has, as its Prime Minister for many years now, Narendra Damodar Das Modi, and he recently was the chief guest of honour at the grand opening of a magnificent, enormous, yet another temple in one of the satellite suburbs of Mumbai. And he's very favourable to Srila Prabhupada's movement. Was a close personal friend of the late Gopal Krishna Maharaj. And so he came and officiated at that very important ceremony. And there are many instances, perhaps we'll tell them first, of royal patronage, or in the modern vernacular, of course, used to be kings and queens, nowadays prime ministers and presidents. But in ancient times, Emperor Ashoka, he was a vigorous patron of Buddhism. In fact, he converted to Buddhism himself, and that became the state religion in India for quite some period of time. And Buddhism spread almost the length and breadth of the subcontinent during his reign. He was the last emperor in the Maurya dynasty, very famous historical. Of course, that's a little more than 2,000 years ago now. But after his disappearance, and perhaps the next generation, his sons, then Hindu kings again became very powerful, and Buddhism was more or less driven beyond the borders of India. Both predominantly it was driven east and north into countries like Nepal and Tibet, China, Philippines, Japan, and of course throughout Southeast Asia. And even it was spread into countries nowadays known as Afghanistan, where large deities of Lord Buddha were created. So that's one example. And of course, during the time of the Goswamis, Emperor Akbar's commander-in-chief of his army was Maharaj Man Singh, who was the king of Jaipur and also the commander-in-chief. And he was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He was a devotee of Krishna. and a disciple of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. And he had considerable influence over Akbar. Not influence so much. Akbar was actually a very just Muslim ruler, very fair-minded, didn't persecute the Hindus. Some historians say he even gave up eating beef. Didn't become a strict vegetarian, but he did at least give up eating beef. And he walked on one occasion from Delhi all the way to Vrindavan, made a pilgrimage. So, with their assistance, the Goswamis were able to started with Srila Rupa Goswami, but he passed away before completion of the magnificent Govindaji temple in Vrindavan. And that and the Madan Mohan temple were both built due to the kind donations of a red sandstone, which up until that point had only ever been used for the construction of Mughal palaces and meeting halls. But out of an understanding of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis, Akbar authorized and Raj Man Singh arranged and actually oversaw to some extent, along with the Goswamis. Jiva Goswami was a very good manager and organizer, not just the greatest philosopher who ever lived in India, Srila Prabhupada's, but they were very dynamic, extremely active in constructing these magnificent temples. So there's another example, very high quality red sandstone was used in the construction of those temples. And in the modern era, in 1976, Prabhupada was in his Calcutta temple, and the niece of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose came to see Srila Prabhupada. And some of us know when you fly in and out of Calcutta, nowadays you fly in and out of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose Kolkata International Airport. Very well, isn't it? Yes. Sadhana. So, but formerly that was known as Dum Dum, Calcutta International Airport. But the name has been changed. Just a little history for those not familiar. Subhas Chandra Bose was a freedom fighter during the 1930s and 40s who was instrumental in overthrowing the yoke of the British imperialists who had been ruling India for almost 200 years. And Prabhupada and many historians rightly note that it was Subhas Chandra Bose more than Mahatma Gandhi who was influential in the British finally giving up control of India, because he staged an armed rebellion. He started a guerrilla army from outside of India, in Burma principally. He actually went to both Germany and Japan during the Second World War and met with the highest ranking military leaders of those countries and said, look, any Indian soldiers that you capture, you hand them over to me and I'll engage them in our guerrilla war fighting the British on Indian soil. So the leaders, the commanders of those two countries were more than happy to do that, and that in fact happened. So anyway, Subhas Chandra Bose's niece, her name was Mrs. Lalita Bose, and she came to see Srila Prabhupada. She was very supportive of Srila Prabhupada's propagating the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. And she was a personal friend of the Prime Minister of India at the time, Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi. And she told Srila Prabhupada that Mrs. Gandhi thinks very highly of you. She thinks you are a very pure saint. Her words, Mrs. Gandhi's words. So Prabhupada took advantage when she said that, well, you please, whatever influence you have with Mrs. Gandhi, you please try and convince her to, through the immigration bureaucracy, allow my Western disciples to extend their visas here in India, because I'm depending on my Western disciples primarily to maintain our fledgling centres here in India. At that time, Srila Prabhupada wasn't attracting so many Indian nationals to become full-time devotees in his temple. Some were joining, and especially in the last year or so of Prabhupada's life, many, many more did join. But at that time in history, Prabhupada's temples were being managed primarily by his Western disciples from America and other countries. Our Bhagavat Ashraya Prabhu, who visits us from time to time here at New Govardhana, he was the temple president in Delhi at that time, and many, many other devotees. So she said she would do what she could, and she assured Prabhupada that this agitation that your American disciples are CIA agents, none of us politicians believe that. There's a few agitators amongst the Naxalites who were a communist political party, especially prominent in India at that time, in Bengal. He said just the Naxalites don't, but they're just making agitation. So then she made a wonderful remark to Srila Prabhupada. She said, Netaji, Subhash Chandra Bose, organised an army to conquer India, and you, Srila Prabhupada, have organised an army of Vaishnavas to conquer the world. That's what she said. Isn't that nice? So, so royal patronage is very important, and at least in the pious land of Punya Bhumi, it's going on. Yes. So I might stop here, everyone. Does anyone have a question or a comment or a correction? Hare Krishna. Julian, yes. I'll get back to Mike.
Thanks for the class, Prabhu. In the beginning, you said why Krishna appeared as Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And I was wondering, because Lord Chaitanya and Krishna look different, totally different personality, like their character and their appearance and their activity. And also, he has other incarnation, Rama, for example. So how do you understand all this incarnation as same person, although they have all different characteristics?
Thank you. Well, we can understand something, but we may not be able to understand everything. And according to time, place, and circumstance, very important, those three. Desha, Kala, Patra. According to the time, according to the place, and according to the circumstances. And we can go back to Lord Buddha, who appeared at he's Vishnu. And sometimes the task is so great that only the Supreme Lord himself can appear in a mysterious form, because it's such a huge task that it's only Lord Vishnu who can appear at a particular time in history and enact certain pastimes which will encourage the general mass of people to follow in that direction. For example, at the time 2,500 years ago when Lord Buddha appeared, and he Keshava Buddha Sariya Jaya Jagadish Hare. He's Jagadish, he's the Supreme Lord. Keshava, he's the Supreme Lord. The Brahminical, even 2,500 years into the Kali Yuga, the Brahmins were performing more or less wholesale animal slaughter. Karmakanda, sacrifice these animals, and you get a good to goddess Kali or some other devata, and you get some good result. So out of compassion for the poor creatures, Krishna appeared as Lord Buddha, particular time. And he preached ahimsa, non-violence. But then segue forward to Shankaracharya appearing. And of course it's a huge topic. But, and he teaching, and he's the incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he's also very powerful, almost on the level of Vishnu. So he gradually got the people back onto the right track by preaching a philosophy which is very similar to Buddhism, but he did it based on the Vedas. And then a few hundred years later, Madhvaracharya appeared, followed by Ramanujacharya, and then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially took sannyas. One reason was to convince the intellectuals in society, persons and renunciants like Prakashananda Saraswati, who was a sannyasi and a vastly learned scholar, so that they would respect him being a fellow sannyasi. He took that renounced order of life. And then, and also other great scholars throughout India, in Jagannath Puri, and also in South India, Mahaprabhu spoke to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and the Venkata Bhatta and his brothers. So that was a particular group of persons that Mahaprabhu was able to influence very profoundly, and he did it as a sannyasi. But then he instructed Lord Nityananda to get married and to go back to Bengal, and as a married man to travel and preach Harinam Sankirtan all over Bengal, which Nityananda Prabhu did. And he converted hundreds and thousands of persons who weren't necessarily highly intellectual. They were in many cases merchants, even gold, silver merchants and others, and many even lower caste persons. But he was able to do that as a householder with his associates. But he's Lord Balaram, appearing in that way, according to the time, according to the place, and according to the circumstances. So, of course, Krishna's different incarnations. What to speak of Lord Varaha, Lord Narasimhadev, amphibious beast, Ramprasad, isn't that? Was that Hiranyaksha's comment? Amphibious beast. Not understanding that this is the Supreme Lord appearing, not in an ordinary boar, but a magnificent. So I hope that's a little helpful. Something? Yeah? Not convinced. Let me just, and maybe Manibandha Gopal or Ramprasad. Just on that point, Lord Gaurasundar, in his household life, having the complexion of molten gold and having beautiful long black hair, as Sri Krishna does, and was dressed exquisitely. And that's why it was so heartbreaking in Katwa when the barber had to shave off the Lord's hair, and he adopted very simple sannyas attire. Prabhu's a comment or so?
I remember hearing Srila Prabhupada say that for the age we live in, Krishna hasn't appeared as a blue boy, as a cowherd boy, but he said the most perfect form of Krishna for us is Lord Chaitanya. That Krishna has appeared in that form, especially to help us.
All right. On that note, we'll finish. Thank you very much. Jai Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.